Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me on a beautiful day here in stunning Sardinia with the keys to a Lambo. This is the new Huracan Tecnica, the model that slots in between the EVO rear-wheel drive and the Super Trofeo Omologato, the STO, a middle combination with some of the technical and driving dynamics of the STO, but more of the usability of the EVO rear-wheel drive. And as somebody who has now done a couple of thousand miles, about 4,000 miles with my STO, I'm fascinated to find out what this is like. And today is our first opportunity to get behind the wheel, to go take it for a drive, and to enjoy some spectacular roads here in Sardinia, one of my favourite places to drive, to find out all about it. Let's have a quick look around this Huracan Tecnica. We'll go through the details, the changes, what they've done with the design, the aero, the engine, the interior, that side of things. Then we're going to get straight onto the road to have some fun, enjoy it, and see what it's all about. I'm itching to get out and drive, so let's keep the introduction brief. Let's have a quick overview of the Huracan Tecnica and what exactly this car is about. Now, the Huracan arrived quite a long time ago. We had the update midlife to the EVO, and promptly thereafter also had the EVO rear-wheel drive, the facelift of the rear-driven variant. In this case, the Tecnica name is something we've partly seen before. At the end of the Gallardo's lifespan, the predecessor to the Huracan, we had the Gallardo Superleggera, the LP570-4 Superleggera Edizione Tecnica. This time around though, it incorporates some of the elements from the STO, which has been the most hardcore version of the Huracan that Lamborghini have made, with the daily usability of the EVO rear-wheel drive. And that's why I'm particularly intrigued about this thing. So it's a combination we know very well, the 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10, 640 horsepower, 7-speed dual clutch gearbox, very distinct Lamborghini looks, although quite significantly different looks for the Tecnica. They have revised the appearance of this front end significantly. Now, Lamborghini always use hexagonal shapes, ypsilons, Y-shapes, triangles, that kind of theme, and you don't see that anywhere more than right here. An element that we saw on the Sian, the hybrid hypercar, the first production hybrid from Lamborghini, brought in around here, all to do with the cooling and the airflow, these flicks that come up, as we've seen also on the Aventador S, on the other models, including the new Urus Performante as well, all for the cooling, and radiators around the front. We've got a bit of storage, it saves some weight. We've got some carbon fibre body panels, so carbon bonnet, carbon boot lid as well, which makes it 1,379 kilos, about 40 kilos heavier than the STO, but lighter also than the regular EVO rear-wheel drive, with even more carbon options that you can spec. Now, this particular car is painted in blue Astreus. Inside, we've got the sport seats in the black Alcantara with the white leather details all around. We'll go through the interior in even more detail later, because you can opt to have things like the full carbon door cards that I saw on the car that I checked out the first time. I want to pop open both the front and rear, so I actually need to turn on the ignition just quickly to show you back there, because we have this engine, and let's face it, a big part of this car is this engine. The full exposed carbon fibre engine bay opens up to reveal the power plant. 640 horsepower, 565 newton meters of torque. It will do 0 to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour in 3.2 seconds. It will do 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, 124 miles per hour in 9.1 seconds. It will go to a top speed, significantly higher than the STO in fact, of 202 miles per hour, 325 kilometers per hour. It's got the black engine top as opposed to the bronzed one that you see on the likes of the Performante and the STO. But also back here, actually, just to show you quickly, it still has this plaque, which is V10, firing order, and the cylinders with their specific firing order. All nice touches, and you can see through that glass window towards the black top of the engine underneath the cross brace that you have there as well. So the engine sounds amazing, and we're going to talk actually about the differences of the sound when we're on the road in just a second. But also up front, unlike the STO, which has the full carbon fibre cofango across the entirety of the front with barely any luggage space at all, this time around we actually have something where we've got two soft bags sitting between the kit that's provided in here. You can fit two of that kind of size bag. You can actually use the car, makes a big difference. Plus, look at this, exposed carbon fibre. Always lovely to have that on a car. I love carbon fibre parts, although they do certainly add something to the price tag. Anyway, let's close that back up. Design has been enhanced more than just at the front. You can also see around here with the intakes for the side, this has been completely reworked versus how it was before. Looks a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more like the Essentia SCV12 with all of these louvers and the way it's all shaped. and designed and set up, and even more for the cooling back here, plus the little wing that we have. And also down at the back itself, I want to show you these aggressive tailpipes. No round tailpipes, we've got the hexagonal shapes as I was referencing before, looking very, very mean back there. And even the way it's just cut in and crazy. It's a crazy design, which is often the way with a Lambo, right? That's often what they're all about. Anyway, I should probably step in. Let's get this started quickly so we can take a listen to the Huracan Tecnica. Sit inside here. You can lift up the flap in the center or press through it, depending which you would like. Press the button, and that's in Strada mode, and it sounds amazing. So let's gear up, let's go out and drive, and let's give some more feedback about this car. The first thing, it's currently showing about 33 degrees Celsius on the dashboard, so the AC is blasting. I apologize for the background noise, but let's pull the paddle, pop it into gear. We will start in automatic before we get plenty of V12 sounds on the wonderful roads around here in just a second. Now, there are a few things about the Tecnica which really intrigue me. Some things that are probably better than I expected, and some things that I'm a little bit perplexed by. Some things I like more than on the STO. We obviously have stop-start. Now, we begin in Strada mode, so back to the normal Anima settings that we know from typical Lamborghini models. Strada for road, then sport, then Corsa for track. In the STO, you start in sport, it completely skips Strada, then you go up to the most hardcore mode, which is Trofeo, and lastly you have Piaggio, which is for less good conditions when it's wet. Now in this car, in Strada, like with other Huracans, the first thing I have to say is that when it's shifting up, well, short shifting up really early with the exhaust valves closed like this, it's super docile, and for a supercar, dare I say it, it's a little bit boring, if you will. But that is, of course, if you're in your everyday driving setting and you're not really wanting to have to overly concentrate and go over the top with it. If you turn it up into sport, which is probably the sweet spot, things do get a little bit more lively, but it's only if you're more firm on the brake that it will start to drop the gears, and you get a little bit of that soundtrack, but still, the valves keep closed until about 4,000 RPM or so. You don't get a whole lot out of it. Now, in the Huracan, they still haven't incorporated an Ego mode. Ego in the Urus and also in the Aventador S and onwards is where you can configure and have your own individual driving settings. For example, the steering, the dampers, the throttle response, and a few other things. The dynamic steering is a big topic that we're going to discuss in a moment as well. But you pretty much in here have to press M, go into manual, and start to get a whole lot of that. The end of an era, because I think this is going to be the last V10 supercar from Lamborghini. The Huracan is going to have a complete refresh, and the next model is almost certainly going to have either a turbo V8 like you find in the Urus and some of the other Volkswagen Group cars, or it's going to go down the hybrid route, which will probably make more sense as well. Perhaps a hybrid with a V8 as well for that, not entirely sure. Either way, for now we've got a V10, so let's absolutely make the most of it down a road. The last time I drove was in a LaFerrari Aperta, so some pretty big footsteps to follow. Now on here, the first thing I'm going to say this time around is that in sport, it's pretty bumpy. This ride is rough. This is where I want a bumpy road mode button, like you have in Ferraris, to soften it up, because I like the extra response of sport. I like the soundtrack, even though it's still got those artificial burbles, pops and bangs and things going on, but it's definitely firm. And this is before we go the full way into Corsa, just to test this out. It's firmer, but nothing like Trofeo in the STO. Trofeo in the STO is rough. Now in here we've got the sport seats, which were introduced and available on a variety of different models. I use a cushion for my lower back in the STO, and I would certainly appreciate that right now as well, just to make the ride a little bit more manageable. I'm going to go back into sport because that seems to be the right place to be, especially for this kind of driving. I think when you get to cars like this with this amount of power, you know, if they go for a hybrid or a turbo V8 next, it will have even more. The thing that's easy to forget is that if you're revving it out, you're going at driving license danger zone speeds, and you've got to be a little bit sensible with that. Here, however, you know, just being up through the rev range, shifting at 6,000, 7,000, it goes up to 8.5. It's ample glory. I mean, just listen to this for a moment. brilliant, isn't it? The sound of this car. Just the V10 engine doing its thing. Now, I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit more about the steering, and the reason I want to focus on the steering is we have the dynamic steering, so the electronic steering, as opposed to hydraulic. And in the STO, I find it's either too light in sport or far too artificially heavy in Trofeo. And I've not been the biggest fan of it, and I always thought maybe that was down to adding the rear wheel steering back in, because in the regular EVO rear wheel drive, which doesn't have the rear wheel steering, I preferred the steering feel. Now this does have rear wheel steering like the STO, but it feels so much more honest. The steering feels more accurate and real to me, more like what I would want it to be, as opposed to the kind of fake feeling of the STO's setup. I'm not quite sure why exactly that would be. Obviously the weight savings of the car, or rather the weight increase over the STO due to not having all of the carbon fibre body panels and a few other things, isn't something that you're going to notice when you're driving on a road like this. Pretty insignificant at the end of the day, but this is a great car for this kind of purpose, and it's one of the reasons the Huracan is so immensely popular, is that you can just drive them, use them, go down to first gear to put the power down, and it's a bit ballistic. You know, 3.2 seconds to 60 or 62 these days actually isn't one of the fastest cars out there. Not all that long ago, when the four-wheel drive Huracan launched, it was destroying everything down the drag strip, because that was really, really very quick and very reliable and consistent with it as well. Obviously here you can misbehave a little bit more, but the mid-engine setup definitely means that it's a snappy thing with the STO. I can tell you, if you want to slide it around, you do have to have your A game brought to it, because it's very happy to flick the tail out and about and make life a little bit difficult for you. I think these are generally, going to be driven by people who are taking it more easily though, and that's where having the extra luggage space up front versus the STO is a game changer. It feels a little bit more lively, and maybe it does overall feel very, very similar to what you get from the STO. And perhaps in this particular car, where we've got the Club Sport roll cage right behind us and the track telemetry cameras and data as well, a little bit perplexing, because to me the STO is what you're going to use that for, and most STOs don't even have those spec'd anyway either. A couple of them do, but not everything, because as I discovered, in some countries where you have sound restrictions, this is actually a little bit too loud to drive on a racetrack. That noise is not really permitted, as fun as it is, as nice as it sounds. What I do like about Lamborghinis these days, and particularly the Huracan, sorry, just had to shut up for a second as we go over a slightly bumpy road, is that everything does just work. My STO has been flawless, and the same can't be said for most cars in the supercar performance car category. I'm actually going to do a quick spin around here. The turning circle is amazing. Obviously the rear wheel steering helps with that, but it turns around in next to nothing, which is obviously quite appreciated. This is perfect. This is just what you want. Driving here, enjoying the sights, enjoying the sounds, even if it's a little bit bumpy. Like I said, I would really, really like to be able to just have a slightly dampened setup. If I go back into Strada, keep it in manual on the gearbox, even at 5,000 RPM, the exhaust valves are closed. Obviously, for regulation, it can't be that loud, and I'm not sure if this car does have an OPF, but it feels weird downshifting at 5,000 RPM and not hearing anything. And in fact, in first gear, I think it keeps the exhaust valves closed. They only open at about 6,000 RPM. That's just shy of 6,000 RPM before you get any sound out of it in Strada mode. So I don't think you're going to find yourself driving it in manual and Strada all that often. That's not really what this setup is for. Much more sport. If you're on some nice tarmac, say you're in Germany or something on the twisty roads out there, probably Corsa is a little bit more manageable. Here, absolutely not. I wonder if we're going to get a passing opportunity to open this up a little bit more. I mentioned that I'd touch a little bit more on things that I do like and don't like. So I very much do like the steering, as I've said. I think this just feels so much closer to the right setup. What I'm not the biggest fan of is how firm the ride still remains. Now obviously the EVO rear-wheel drive is a softer car, and that continues in the lineup. That's still available and sits beneath this in dynamic terms, so that's probably the right car in that sense, but it would be just a case of adding a configurable driving mode to solve that concern that I have. Arguably at the end of the models line it wouldn't really make all that much sense to do so, and given how limited the STO was, obviously dealers didn't exactly get a whole lot of cars. I feel very lucky I was able to purchase one. I can see how this gives that dynamic opportunity to customers who otherwise would only be choosing the EVO rear-wheel drive to have the option of the different models. It makes sense from a manufacturing point of view to offer the different cars to enable people to have the choice between which model they're going to go for at the end of the day. And there's a lot you can do in configuration terms with this. For example, the interior, carbon door cards, add persona materials and colours. Same for the exterior, exposed carbon sections. You could have painted liveries, you can have a black roof, you can have your choice of paint colour. The blue Astreas on this car, a little bit more subtle. I think I'd probably be choosing a bright, out there in your face colour to really emphasise the new design. Those Ypsilon shapes around the headlights, I think that would stand out a little bit more and therefore be my choice, what I'd opt for with this car. Let's get some smoother tarmac, there we go. It's fantastic, that sound, isn't it? Sometimes you've just got to shut up and let the car do the talking. It doesn't skip as much as the STO. The STO has such a sensitive throttle pedal that if you go over a bump on the ground and your foot moves even the tiniest of amounts, you end up in this oscillating, skipping feeling, which you'll probably notice now on any video you ever watch of an STO. You hear it constantly with the engine. The way it revs up, revs down, and kind of jumps back and forth. It's a very strange sensation. This feels a little bit more planted in that respect. The shifts are just mega. So I can see why this exists, and it's definitely not a replacement of the EVO rear-wheel drive, which is perhaps why my mindset has been more on expecting it to be a little bit softer, and I can see how it adds all of these different models to the line as we go over these bumps. This is savage. It gives a choice, right? It gives the different models for the different driver, whichever one they'd like to have. The other side of this is basically where we are now, coming down into Porto Cervo, and in fact I'm going to pop it into Strada to cruise, but this is where you find the Lamborghini Lounge, which they set up throughout the summer as a place effectively for customers to come and configure their cars. I'm going to take a look in there in a moment, but also where they have been based for these first drives with the Huracan Tecnica. And Porto Cervo is a very upmarket place. I have visited a couple of times before and been in this area, and to be here now with this car is obviously really quite cool as well. Just popped it back into Strada to cruise, to leisurely roll down here into the heart of all of the action. I suppose I will see where we can park this up, because the Lamborghini location is just over my shoulder back here. So let's swing around. I think they run some test drives and things from here, and park up with this and see where we shall go. Before we head inside, I want to show you a little bit more around the inside of the Huracan Tecnica, to go through some more of these details and unique things that are specific to this model, but also the spec of the very car that we are sat in at the moment. Now, if you're familiar with the Huracan models themselves, you have a digital dash, you've got a very prominent rev counter here with your gear selector in the center, speedo down towards the right, but if you change on the Anima selector your driving modes through Strada, Sport and Corsa, the dash changes. But listen also as we go into Sport. It opens the exhaust valve, so at idle it is significantly louder, plus the yellow touches. Then we go one more up into Corsa, everything goes red, sounds the same. We'll hop it back into Strada for the moment. Then either side of that, you have some more information, but I need to close the door. To do so, the door pull handles, again, have these Y shapes, finished with the hexagons that you just see everywhere. Here, around your mirror controls, around the speaker grills for the Sensonum system, around the air conditioning vents in carbon fibre, on the airbag, on all of the controls. There are hexagons absolutely everywhere when you start to take all of this in. You've then got, as I mentioned, your temperatures and pressures and things on the display. You can control a few screens with the toggles just here. Press that. We've got our BTM, brake temperature management, like on the STO. On the left, our tyre pressures. You've got a few bits of trip information, so you can see, you know, more of that. Depending what exactly it is, you go through the chrono, we've got the next service, and we go back round. And we've got the full display again. You've got your cruise control on the right hand side, your wipers, your lights. Now we need to talk about the indicators. When you're familiar with this, it's fine, but learning it is a bit of a process. That's left, that's right. So yes, with your left hand, you press right on the steering wheel, even if it's upside down because you're in the middle of a corner, to indicate, and you press that to cancel it. Takes some getting used to. You've got the fixed paddles mounted to the column with these lovely cutouts. They're very nice, they feel great, and obviously the shift is magnificent. We've got the carbon fibre pack in here. We've also got the dark chrome anodized switch gear around the centre as well. Normally this would be bright silver, optional to have it presented like that. We've got the carbon inlay across the dashboard, splitting the dual tone of the black Alcantara and the white leather. It is a magnificent spec in this particular car, same with the door cards and the trim on the seats with the white inserts, the white Tecnica embroidery, but also this laser etching that you have through the centre, which is new for the Huracan Tecnica. We've got the embroidery up there, and even on the roof actually, we've got the laser etching with the dual white stripe going on. A few other options. We've got the lift system in here, which is operated with this. One thing that's unusual about this car, you can see the reflection as the nose points up, and the same for the STO and other models, is you have to wait for the lift to be fully up before you can put it back down again. So your instinct might be, oh, I'm over the bump now, put it back down, but you actually have to wait until it stops blinking before you can lower the lift system back to its normal position. So now it's up, we can do that. You get a little bit of sound as the air is being released and lowering the front nose back down a touch. Down here, the flip switch for the start button, you can press it straight through, but it's just that extra bit of theatre, isn't it? It's a Lamborghini after all. This is to go into reverse, where we then have the rear view camera that comes up on the display in front of you, and you get the parking sensor graphics there also, which, given the STO doesn't have those, are very welcome to make general life a little bit easier. If we go back to the main screen though, because we've got the track telemetry cameras in here, you have the track telemetry system. So when the park brake is on, there we go, we can go into telemetry. You have to accept that you've read all of this so that you're definitely on a racetrack. I'm going to pretend I'm on a racetrack right now, but this is where you can save your track data, look at your delta, look back at the cameras, because we've got one mounted just here under the visor, and then behind me there is another one mounted here onto the optional roll cage with a fire extinguisher right underneath it as well, so you can use those cameras to record all of your track data and antics. But I also want to go, I'll just quickly point everything out. We've got the settings, radio, Alexa, so you can talk to it. We've got media, sound, and your phone apps, navigation, telephone. But into vehicle, because this is LDVI, Lamborghini Dinamica Veicolo Integrata, where you can see your brake temperatures, you can see pressures, temperatures, everything else you would want, which was introduced on the STO, but really cool to have that as well. Gives you a lot of information if you are a track junkie and want to spend more time on the racetrack with your car. This is where you've got your settings and everything else for it as well. Not the biggest fan of touchscreens to get to every single option. It takes a while, and one irritation I have from the STO is that if you're listening to media, you know, you're in your media and whatever it is, and you want to do the volume, you can't just mute it or lower it. You have to press here, and then you have to fiddle around with this to get your volume raised and lowered, and it just takes a moment. There's no hardware dedicated button, which is something I would prefer. A few storage cubbies up here, for example, a little bit of space under here, not the most easy to access. You've got a little storage bucket back here with the 12-volt socket. You've got the 2 USB ports, including the one for Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all of that good stuff, which runs through here very nicely. I've actually got the full spec list for this car here as well. If you want to take a look at what we've got on here, you can see all of the details. This car, ex-taxes, is 233,000 euros. That's about, I think I'm going to say 280,000 euros, including tax. But we've got a lot of nice options on this one. Telemetry, Sensonum, black calipers, the 20-inch upgrade wheels, the lasered design around the inside and the dual tone finish as well with the sport seats. So all very well equipped and all very, very nice, to be honest, plus decently air conditioned right at this moment, but probably need to switch this off and head inside for a moment. Here at the Lamborghini Lounge then, we have the Huracan Tecnica in Verde Selvans and plenty of options and wheels to take a quick look at. There is also the Huracan STO here in the launch scheme of the Blue La Fe and Arancio, California. But I want to show you in particular about this car, some of the things that stand out perhaps a little bit different to the car that I've been driving, both exterior and interior. So this is the regular wheel design. It's the same wheel design as per the car that we've been driving. And again, spot these hexagons, 6 hexagons making up the outline of the wheel. There are a few different trims that we can see as well. This car also features some ad personam paint livery, including the roof sections. You can go pretty wild with this, 400 different paint colors, plenty of different liveries and styles that you can go through, coming here, for example, to the studio to run through that, even going to the factory as well. But then on the inside of this example, I'll show you here, we have the full carbon fiber door cards. So these come with the grabs, with the door release pulls, and obviously the full satin carbon fiber finish that continues on through the interior of the car as well. So quite a nice option if you want to make it feel even sportier, even, let's say, closer to the STO. If we come over this way, we've got the STO's wheel. We've also got the bronze dual tone style finish, the full gloss black wheel as well, and some examples of the paint. And believe me, there are a lot of different options. Just to spot a few here, we've got Verde Citrea, that's a colour from the STO, Gialla Bellinus, that's the Huracan EVO rear wheel drive Spider colour. What else do we have? Verde Gia, I think that's from the Lamborghini Sian. Plenty of other really, really nice standout colours, seatbelt colours, leathers, trims, interior materials, you name it. You can let your imagination run wild when it comes to these things and creating a perfect spec for a car. It is absolutely boiling outside here. What a drive that was. But I want to show you also another example, different type of specification for the Tecnica. This colour is called Matte Grigio Artis. Inside, have a look here, we've got the black with blue contrast, and to be honest, they're doing a very, very nice job having the different coloured leather sections, the stitching and everything that matches. This is a completely different style. We've got the satin black ad personam roof here as well. So I think you've got those bright colours like the Verde Selvans car inside, you've got this kind of middle example, and then you've got the quite elegant example here of the blue Astreas, which, you know, somewhere like this, when we're surrounded by the yachts here in the harbour in Porto Cervo, it is a very, very lovely place to be. Something that's interesting to me actually about this car is when you look through it, there are more grills and things that are closed up in comparison with the STO, which is all completely open. And obviously that's a part of it being a more dailyable car. You're not worrying so much about the stones that are pinging out everywhere, which are a consequence of going for the absolute best performance, like with the STO. Obviously this car, just to touch on the wheels quickly, center lock, but with the diamond cut, the dual tone design that you have on it. So I think pretty much, as I've said after and while driving it, steering feels great to me. Steering feels really nice. It's all about the engine, the V10, the last of a dying breed, basically. We're not going to be seeing things like this forever. And this car is that blend, that balance. I thought it might be a little bit more towards the EVO rear wheel drive, whereas it feels quite close to the STO. I would personally love a more comfortable seat. Seats are a very personal, individual thing, but even if you go down to the regular non-sport seat, the comfort seat, it's actually still pretty firm in these cars. It's great having a bit more practicality, something I miss with the STO because you literally cannot take anything with you. I think I would go not for the cage and all of that side of it, because it's useful to have that shelf behind you for a couple of additional soft bags as well, putting some small backpacks or briefcases or things back there, which just adds to that even more. But being able to fit our luggage in the front is something you definitely can't do in the STO. So you can see where this balance comes. In driving terms, it's very close, very similar experience to the STO, this engine that was first effectively in the Performante with 640 horsepower, then the STO, then other model, well, the Huracan EVO, then the STO, now we have it in the Tecnica as well. And we're on the Bridgestone Potenza Sport tyres here also, so something kind of in the middle, not the full race, but not full, let's say every day either, somewhere that suits what the car is all about. So it's been warm, it's been amazing fun, it's been brilliant being back here in Sardinia, somewhere I've enjoyed driving each and every time I've come over. This time around though, to get a first full feel for what the Huracan Tecnica is all about, a first drive behind the wheel of the latest and probably last V10 in the Lamborghini lineup. That's it for this time though. Thank you very much for watching as always, guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.